So we are here with the Reverend Dr. Kenda Creasy Dean and the Reverend Matt Overton. We had a wonderful session with them a few weeks ago, and we're so glad to be able to follow up with some interview questions. Thank you both for being here. So a first question I have is, let's say that I'm a minister or a youth worker in a church, and I'm on board with the idea of innovation as the next step in my youth ministry, but most of my church isn't there yet. They don't know what that looks like, or perhaps they don't think they can contribute to things in that way. What first steps might I take to bring this model into my context? And what might be my first struggles in doing that?
So Ken and I agreed that I'd answer first. So, my experience with I've been, formerly doing congregational ministry for probably 15 years like that, I guess, 15, 16 years. So my experience is sometimes whenever I want my groups to move in a new direction, I have to understand that most of the week they're not focused on the same things I am as a pastor. They're worried about their mortgages and their kids and everything else. And so a lot of times what I just have to do is bring them along to help them see the reality that I see and understand about the church around me. So, everyone always jokes that the first thing a Christian does when you meet them is they hand you a book. And I think that's probably a fun joke and fair as well. But I do think that sometimes reading some books and articles together to help them understand why you think you need to move in the direction you need to move in. Because generally moving in a new direction means they're going to have to part with some things that they feel like they're supposed to guard and protect and care for and maintain, because the church, regardless of the church, is a traditional structure in some sense. And so I found that just taking them on a learning journey is the first step. Right along with that is, before they're ever going to go anywhere with me, and we talked about this when we met, was, am I doing job A well? Because the reality is I did accept a calling to this place to embrace these people and to love them in a certain set of tasks that they called me to. And so if I'm not doing job A well sufficiently, they're not going to want to follow me anywhere or necessarily learn anything. And so I think just bringing them along on a learning, and really it's not about teaching them something as much as getting them to converse and talk about the situation they find themselves in that they may not be aware of. And then they start to be like, oh gosh, well, what does that mean? And what might we do about it? And then there's an opportunity to, I think, bring them in to say, well, there's some new directions that some others are pursuing, or that we might try this, or these are ideas, because nobody knows the answers for the last 15, 20 years, I would say, in youth ministry as to where we're all headed. So you're inviting them on a journey with you and to attempt something new most of the time. But I think learning, oftentimes an awareness of the landscape around them, becomes the first step.
Yeah, that's really good. I do think that the first step is always to sort of, you know, really know your context and your people, right? And it's hard not to want to address the pain of somebody that you know. And if so, we don't think of that as, innovation a lot of the times, but it's like, well, what if we did this? If you don't think about, you don't get kind of caught up in how new or innovative it is if you know that there's someone that you love that's suffering and you really want to just address that pain. So I think the two things, in Matt, you said it well, right? The two things that come to mind for me are, number one, show, don't tell. People really don't, I mean, we can tell them all we want to, but until they see it, I think they have a lot of trouble imagining things they even want to imagine, right? And so part of that is showing them what other congregations are doing that's different. And part of it is just creating small wins. You don't have to win everything all at once, but what's one thimbleful of this new direction that they can experience and feel confident in, and it demystifies it a little bit. And the other thing is, I think that I think trust is the currency of ministry, just in general. And certainly trust is the currency of ministry that's done in a new way. So until you can earn people's trust, you've got work to do just pastorally to lay the groundwork. And so I hear that in Matt saying, make sure job A is done well.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah. And they get to determine that, really. I think that's part of it too, is My mantra, I think I said this when we met, was like, one of my pastor friends early on said, the church is not your petri dish. It's not your laboratory to experiment. It's not your place. You're there to serve and love. And so they're gonna frame for you, at least initially, what they hope that you will do. And if you care for them, you're going to engage with that well. And out of that caring, you then your leadership obligation comes, which is to say, well, I think you guys need to see a little bit bigger picture about what's going on. Then we all have to decide together what we want to do about that. And Kenda's right. It's one thimbleful at a time. Let's do something small and just dip our toe in the water to say what's possible, or what might we try that we would feel okay with as a starting point. Nothing revolutionary. And quite frankly, I think a big reason you do that is so you don't get churned up too, because the system reacts very quickly when you try to do it the other way, to say, well, I've got the right answers and I'm here to fix it all, and we're going to do this tomorrow and we're going to do it at scale, and you're going to get eaten for breakfast. I think that tends to be happening. So it's loving in two directions. I think it's care for self and care for the community, and a desire to love them where they are. And the learning, I think I love, because Ken is right. Like, it's the human stories. Like, so whatever you're going to do is going to be in service of a corner of your community, or a certain human being or set of human beings that your ministry has encountered that you want to serve in your context. The learning often helps them see those people more clearly. I think so. When you pair the two together, they're doing some ministry, they're going to encounter the stories, and they're going to say, oh, now I know that information's true, because I saw it in so-and-so, or I saw it when we went and did this thing in the community. And you know what? That would be an idea worth pursuing, because those folks do matter, or that problem really matters. And it should matter more to the church than it has, or our model should speak to that more. So it's a bit of on the ground plus learning. Yeah, help people understand why would we do something different, or why would we go and do that? Well, let's, and it takes a while. People have to sit with those ideas for a long time, sometimes before they encounter enough stories, or the light bulbs go on, or they're like, okay, I'm ready to try something now. I'm ready to move. So
I was just going to point out that I think Father Gregory Boyle is a great example of this. So he's the priest who works with gangs, has worked for 30 years now with the gangs in LA. And he's often considered the father of the social entrepreneur movement in congregations, especially with young people. But he didn't set out to be a social entrepreneur. He didn't even know the term, right? He loved these young people who were in these gangs and they couldn't get jobs. And he's like, they need jobs. They're not going to stop killing each other until they have a job. And nobody would give him one. So he's like, okay, I guess I'll create something that'll give him a job. And that's how Homeboy Industries started. So it wasn't out of anything other than love for the people that he knew. And if he didn't know them, or if he only had like an academic understanding of them, none of that would have happened.